honestly, I just want to talk about money, success, happiness, the system or the game of life, and to be quite frank, my relationship with the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. Heck, maybe just the relationship with your own sense of character if you want to be agnostic about it. You know, before when I wanted to talk about these things, I used to basically just chicken out and say, no, I can't talk about that. People will think I'm crazy. I should just play it safe, you know, keep it vanilla. It's good for business. Who's going to want to watch somebody create a Google Sheets budget template in one moment and then talk about the meaning of life in another? Well, I would, because I don't think those two things are actually really unrelated at all, especially for somebody who's trying to swim towards a specific destination in life as opposed to just being swept along by the tide. And I want to thank you for watching and supporting me because you've helped me feel much more comfortable in my own skin. You've helped me see that I'm not so strange and alone in the way that I think about things. And so as part of my way to say thank you, before I dive into my thoughts in this video, I wanted to give you guys a bit of a behind the scenes peek at how I made my last video because I know a bunch of you guys have been asking me. And so I'll do that with the help of today's sponsor, Milanote. Milanote was basically the secret weapon behind that video, and that's because it's an amazing tool for organizing creative projects. And trust me, that's a big deal for me to say because normally I'm the type of guy who does not use a calendar, to-do lists, any of that stuff. I love annoying my girlfriend Justine by saying things like, sure, let me just put it in my calendar, and then I just point to my head. But for that video, I wanted it to be something really special. I wanted to put a lot into its production. And so this here is a little peek at the pre-production plan I created with Milanote. You can see I started with a rough idea outline of what I wanted to create here, as well as a mood board for the most production intensive scenes. And you can even pull color swatches here based on your reference images, which I thought was really cool. And then we also have a storyboard as well as a shot list for the bike sequence. I had to involve my girlfriend and my mom in basically that entire bike sequence.
I was hanging out a window.
My mom drove the car while Justine was basically hanging out of the car window with the gimbal or hanging out of the trunk. Don't worry though, don't worry. They were trained professionals. Wait, that's the wrong way to wink. There you go. And having this board to show to them and explain everything beforehand made it so much easier. So if you want to take your own projects to the next level, I cannot recommend Milanote enough. I'm a convert for sure. And best of all, you can sign up for free using the link down below to get your own account. And this is not like a trial account or anything like that. It's just a free account. Thank you to Milanote for sponsoring this video. And with that peek out of the way, here comes me at perhaps my most open yet. When I was a child growing up, I used to think that adults knew everything. I used to think that every profession was specifically designed to address a specific problem in life perfectly. I thought people in places of authority like governments or even news anchors knew exactly what they were doing and exactly what they were talking about. But as I got older, I very quickly realized that was not at all the case. I came to see that almost every major organization of society and every aspect of everyone was essentially just winging it. I thought, this is interesting. No one knows what's going on. Fantastic. I mean, the fact that we shut down our entire economy, aka we drastically reduced supply, and then we pumped the economy full of excess printed money, aka drastically increased demand, and then our 400 finest economic PhDs were surprised that this series of events caused rampant inflation, I think is the ultimate testament to that fact. We are more or less clueless about many important things. And I think this is no more apparent than in our education system. At first, I thought teachers were demigods, masters of the realm of their own subject matter, preparing me to understand life. But by grade 4 or so, I started to realize that I was not being guided towards knowledge that would set me up to be a fulfilled and contributing member of society. I was instead strapped onto a freight train, careening off the side of a cliff into ignorance. No offense to anyone who taught me. I had many amazing teachers. It wasn't you, it was the system we were all in. By the way, I think teachers are some of the most important members of society, and that should be reflected in terms of their compensation, working environment, and training. So feeling trapped like this, I began to get a little bit conspiratorial, I guess you could say. I thought to myself that, man, it almost seems deliberate. It's almost as if they're trying to make me stupid and ignorant to the way that the world actually works. Nowadays, I try and temper this with Hanlon's razor, which tells us to never attribute to malice which can adequately be explained by stupidity. I think that's a pretty fair assessment for most things, but I still remain vigilant for malice. Anyway, so I thought, how do I get myself out of this terrible system? It was then that I began to explore two topics simultaneously: money and spirituality. Let's talk about that second one first. For what reason would a kid be trying to connect with a higher power? Seems kind of weird, right? Well, I was raised Catholic from the moment that I was born, so that was basically my introduction to quote unquote God. But as I began to ask questions about this particular lineage of thought, I began to realize that, well, first of all, you're not really supposed to ask questions. And secondly, this just wasn't the right path for me. I just want to quickly say here that this is not a diss on Catholicism. Everyone is figuring out their own path. You're on yours, and I'm just explaining mine. So after rejecting this conception of the world, I spent a brief period of time in atheism before I was confronted with what I found to be a serious dilemma. In order to move through life and do the things I was supposed to do, like get a job, get married, raise a family, live happily ever after, I kind of needed to know why. Like, how am I supposed to orient myself in the world? What is good? What is evil? What is Earth? What is space? And is there any meaning to be found in any of this? For whatever reason, I was just not able to go through the motions like seemingly most people around me. Whenever I was told that I had to do something, I needed to know exactly why I had to do it, which, as you can imagine, annoyed the hell out of my parents, and they've told me lots of funny stories about that, actually. The point is, I had questions and I wasn't satisfied with the answers that I was getting. And then by happenstance, I read the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, which was an obscure book to a teenager who was living in a homogeneous Catholic small hometown. It was this book that set off a relatively far-reaching study of Eastern spirituality, mysticism, esoterica, and meditation practice, which continues to this day. Let's now leave this part of the story here and turn our attention back to money. So I'm sitting in class and I get asked the infamous question that's composed of 6 words. What do you want to be? But really, these 6 words are a whole lot more. What they're really asking is, what do you think you will find most tolerable to do for 50% of your time for the next 30 years or until you're too senile to continue? Obviously, they don't ask kids that, and they probably shouldn't, but that's what the question really means. And I would always give fake answers to this question because my real answer would have been, well, try and figure out what all of this is about. Unfortunately, there's no career path for that. Trust me, I checked. Outside of divinity school or philosophy school, I suppose. And maybe those streams would have been appealing, but I think they're kind of met with one serious problem. Not a lot of money in that. And you might say, well, Steve, if you're into all of this stuff, then why does the money matter? Why does the money matter? Yeah, well, no pun intended, but that's the $1 million question right there, isn't it? The money matters because our society is fundamentally structured in a hierarchical and stratified way. There is a line that exists, and if you are above this line, most of the rules of life do not apply to you. That's because this line represents financial freedom, meaning either your wealth, your resources, or your business generates enough income for you to live without having to do another day of work in your life. People above this line are free from compelled labor, aka having a 9-to-5 job. They are free location-wise, they are free time-wise, and they are often able to be freer from the law, as well as having many more social doors open to them. This is a fact, which we are talking about and scrutinizing much more today. People are asking, hey, wait a minute, why should somebody else be above that line, and why should I be below that line? I knew if I was going to have any hope at answering the questions I had, I needed to be above this line. And so I resigned myself to studying and then attempting to master the world of money. Not because I was trying to get rich, drive fancy cars, and flex on people, but because I wanted to be above this line. Which, by the way, if fortune so favors me one day that I do have a lot of money, don't be surprised to see me with a nice car. If I made $10 million in a year, I would happily spend, I don't know, 100 grand on a car. That would be 1% of my income. That's less proportionally to what I spend on a car now. And when we're talking about money, proportion matters a lot. The point is, those things aren't my goal. That line is the goal. So when I discovered the financial independence movement, I thought, this is great. I'll just, keep working away in the finance industry, keep as much money as I can, and by 35, be free. The problem with this is I pretty much honestly had every intention of leaving society. I would make my exit, go build a cabin in the woods, and search for my answers. Of course, it wouldn't be quite that dramatic. I'd still have friends. I'd want to start a family. I'd have a social life and probably involved in, a charity or not-for-profit, some type of capacity like that. But I've come to feel, surprising I know, a sense of guilt about doing something like that. I would be turning my back on society. And just because I disagree with much of it doesn't mean I should just throw my hands up in the air and go bah and just walk away, squandering any further contributions I could have to trying to be part of a solution. And I think in large part I've changed my mind on this because of this YouTube channel. I never in a million years would have thought I would be doing anything like this. But it has shown me that perhaps I can simultaneously explore the questions I have with time freedom, with location freedom, while earning a living, and try to make the world a little bit of a better place in whatever small capacity I can. And so for that reason, I hope I don't retire at 35, because I have a lot more left to give.